Jupiter is retrograding through the 3rd degree of Aries now until around the 19th of October. This whole retrogradation process takes Jupiter going backwards from the end of July until mid-November. And the idea of a planet going forward and back and forward and back is very reminiscent of the movement of the tide on the shoreline, or the lapping of the sea against the physicality of the beach. And we have a sense of the need to look at something for the first time and then go over it and contemplate it and then have another look with a different experience of mind. So retrogradation is a contemplative period. So if we think of Aries now, not being very contemplative, Aries is moving forward, emerging from nothing into something. We must remember that not everything that could live does live. And the first process of becoming a seed and then a germ is what we're discussing here in the first 5 degrees of Aries. So emergence itself from nothing into something is what we're studying. And the process of Jupiter going backwards and having another look at these ideas is what we're discussing. It goes back into Pisces before it comes forward again into Aries. So there's a lot of opportunity for us individually to review what we're starting now. When Jupiter enters Aries, something begins. It's a cycle of 12 years that's starting, and sometimes we can identify that. Not always at the time, of course. It's actually quite difficult because we just don't have the overview. But when retrogradation occurs, we can actually consider something that almost made a false start, or the promise of a start, in the past, recently, since, let's say, August. And we can see that something was beginning there, maybe, and now we're having a look to see whether or not we actually want to begin it. So in life, we don't make decisions and then enact them clearly. That's not what happens. We might look back and think that we've done that, but that's just not what happens. We might have a contact, we might meet somebody, we might come across a new idea, read a new book, and we think, I might like to do that, and then we'll forget about it for a while, typically, until something else comes up and we're reminded of it, and then we'll have a look again, and we still might not do anything, but eventually we think, yeah, actually that's okay, I'll do that, and then we get on and do it. That's much more typical of how we go about the changes in our lives. So the 3rd degree of Aries is the cameo profile. I'll read this. A cameo profile of a man in the outline of his country. Awakening to a higher level. The sense of being part of the whole brings meaning and allows higher powers to act through us. It extends beyond our local community and embraces universal realities. We are part of it all, and this knowledge gives us both security and power. We can even touch the level of archetype and so awaken to that higher degree. It's good to be reminded that we're not small. We might seem small, we've only got our own little bit of beingness in our body and so on, but actually an aspect of us is infinite. Because who we are is not limited by the skin. We're much more than that. Our ideas, our feelings, our history and our future and our beingness stretches beyond our imagination. And what we're asked to do in Aries 3 is give that imagination a bit of a boost. Just imagine what other environmental conditions there are apart from those that we can see and feel and hear. We're very stuck in the physical. We've got a physical body. Not much we can do about that yet. However, that's not the end of us just because it's our focus. And when we focus on local events, then that's the first dimension. And it's worth mentioning that. That's not irrelevant. Wherever we are has its own beingness, its own reality. And we cannot do anything other than interact with it. So, you look at your environment. Are you happy with it? Do you live in a nice place? Do you have nice people? Do you have circumstances around you that you feel good about? Because that's how you're going to experience yourself. And Jupiter is quite conditioned, isn't it, to grow. That's its purpose in life. And if it's actually restricted by the environment, that's going to create a friction. And it's Aries Jupiter. It doesn't like that. It wants what it wants. What we're doing, though, with this is going further than that. This concept of being restricted by the environment that we have chosen is what we're discussing. Why choose limitation? What's that about? Why would you want to do that? Is that because you make yourself feel secure when you're limited? Or because you want to focus in more depth? Look at why you have adopted the constraints within which you live. And they will be conditioning from childhood. They would be rules and regulations from bosses and even partnership constraints and so on. There are things which hold you in place. And that represents the profile of your environment. The cameo is that bit of you which is seen against the environment. So the profile of the cameo is what we're discussing against the profile of the environment, that which is behind you. But it's not just a physical reality. We're actually discussing the cosmic reality as well. And this is something that Rudyard gives a lot more attention to, and I'll read that in a minute. So, the awesome power of life itself identifies the spiritual dimensions of being, seeing ourselves in the context of being with others. Individuality and community are mutually supportive aspects of each other. And once again, we look at the deeper study where individuality, community, and cosmic realities are all understood to be related to each other. So, Rudyard speaks of the cameo profile of a man suggesting the shape of his country, the sustaining power of the whole as the individual identifies himself with its life. Having become objectively aware of his nature and his basic humanity, the individualizing person finds power and inner security in realizing his essential identity with the section of the universe in which he operates. He in it seems to his consciousness united in a cosmic planetary process in the participation mystique. Metaphysically expressed, this is the concept of the identity of Atman and Brahma. In another sense, through his ability to identify himself with the complex of life activities surrounding him, the individual person can become truly not only an image and representation of the whole of his natal environment, local, planetary, and perhaps even eventually cosmic, but an agent through whom the whole may express itself in an act of creative resonance and outpouring. Highly spiritual take on the matter, very often from Rudyard. He's saying not only are we contained by our environment and therefore defined by it, and this containing process, this limiting process, sharpens our sense of self. But not only that, we can actually get a sense that because we can come up against our environment, and whether that's another person or the community itself, or in this case, cosmic realities, we come up against something else, and we know therefore who we are. And we get this sense of what he calls participation. Mystique. Lovely phrase. We like to participate. We like to be a part of it all. We like to be alive. We are alive. And that's the single most powerful sense that we have of existence. We are alive, we exist. And we don't celebrate that awfully much. And it may be because we don't identify it as something that we could lose. We don't know about it because it's always there. It always has been there. And actually, it always will be there. But the celebration here is that we are participating in life itself. Now, in this particular period when Jupiter is going through there, this participation is advanced. We want more. It's okay to participate in life. It's very nice. But sometimes we want more. And Jupiter is saying, well, why are you limiting yourself? Get more. Claim more. And this claim is good for Aries. Aries likes to claim. Jupiter in Aries takes what it wants. And in this third degree, it's moving up into the cosmic realms. What does that mean? How can you take more life force? And it's to do with affirmation. It's to do with acting as though you have that power. Each of us has a degree of influence, a degree of identification of self with our circle of influence. Some of us are very small in our focus and we don't have much of a circle of influence. Others, often historical figures, have influence throughout the ages. You know, they really influence vast amounts of activity. And we can move from our smaller circle to a much bigger circle during this time of Jupiter going through the third degree of Aries, because we've got a window of opportunity to get a sense of where we could go. Movement forward is very much to do with visualizing what you're looking for, being specific, being clear, having an appetite for growth, and looking for where that will be fulfilled. One of the most profound wisdoms that there is would come from the Bible. Seek and ye shall find. And here we're saying, look, seek big. Look into the cosmic realms. When we have awareness of the cosmic realms, we start to tune in on the soul level. The soul has no other consciousness than the cosmic realms until it puts itself in a physical body, and then we forget that until we remember. And our spiritual practices are basically to help us remember the soul's awareness of all and everything. Now, the soul is eternal and infinite and knows it, and so it just doesn't fear anything. It can't die. It gets what it wants immediately, unless it's in the physical realm. And it imagines whatever it chooses to imagine unrestrictedly, because there's no sense of embarrassment or forbidding or blame or guilt or anything like that to limit its imagination. So let's think what would happen if we identified ourselves for a while as that, as a soul with no limit, with a very big vision, with an awareness that we have reach on the cosmic planes. So we're not aware of ourselves for a while as limited in the physical body. We choose to feel able to use this vehicle of the personality and the body to enact what it is that we've decided to have on the level of soul in such a clear way on the physical plane that we can specifically adjust the clarity of our vision. This is what the physical plane does for us. It makes us really clear about what we're imagining, because if we don't imagine it right, then we don't get it. And if we don't imagine it really exactly right, then we certainly don't get it quickly. And this is the operation of what is called synchronicity. And it shows that if you know what you want and you know it really clearly and specifically, then it comes to you quickly. And if you don't, it doesn't. And it doesn't come to you at all in some cases. We always get what we imagine. That's the cosmic law. But we don't know that we do in the physical plane. This is the forgetting. When the soul incarnates, it forgets. And so we can't see the causal relationship between what we're doing and what we're getting. There's a time delay. But that time itself is an illusion. There's no such thing. But it does seem that way down here on the physical plane. So, what we're experiencing is that our unclarity of vision, our lack of faith, is diminishing our awareness that we cause everything that happens. Now, here we have an example in the third degree of Aries where we can notice it much more clearly, that who we are, what we expect, what we do with the mind, is the cause of what we get. And we're going to notice that. And Jupiter is going to say, okay, then, I want this. I want it this way. That's the formula we're getting to learn. Now, in the retrogradation period, we might not thrust forward, much less likely with Jupiter retrograde. But it's coming forward. It'll be coming forward again come Christmas. We'll be back in this same energy again. So what we're doing now for the next little while, couple of 3 weeks, is just becoming aware of the first degrees of Aries and how it all began, how a cycle begins, so that we can set up pretty much a 12-year project or change in our life circumstances.